I'm bored. Let's watch The Critical Drinker. All right, so now that Agatha All Along is done, I thought it'd be fun to go back and look at some of the grifty, chuddy, bully takes on the show without ever watching any of the episodes. I do believe that this video from The Critical Drinker, which was from over a month ago, he hadn't watched any of the show yet, unless he says differently in this video. And that's kind of a new trend with these channels, is they feel like they don't even have to engage with the content now. Their minions, their followers are locked in. They're going to listen to whatever these guys have to say, even if they're not watching the movies or the TV shows, and being upfront about it, going, I'm not watching this, and it's still going to be garbage because of reasons. So he's basing all of these takes on just the news cycle stuff that's been used for promotional materials. Again, unless he says otherwise, but I've watched this once before. I don't remember it 100%, but I do believe he hadn't watched any of the show at this point, if I remember correctly. So let's get into the video.
Man, some people just absolutely refuse to take the win. I mean, Deadpool and Wolverine turned out to be the biggest smash hit of the summer movie season, and while I don't think it's going to be enough to change the trajectory of the MCU, it could at least be seen as the first step in the right direction. What Marvel really need to do now is follow it up with a high-profile, crowd-pleasing...
This is so dumb. They have their projects already set up in advance. That's how they do things. So it's not like they're going to say, oh, shit, Deadpool and Wolverine was a success. We need to make something right this second to come out in between this and our next project. We just need to jump on it right this moment. Make a TV show, make a movie, make something massively successful in a very limited amount of time, because that always makes the most sense. This coming from somebody that claims to know a lot about how movies and TV shows are made. So this is a disingenuous argument, but there's no surprise there, right? No surprise.
Do now is follow it up with a high-profile, crowd-pleasing project, something to solidify the success of Deadpool and prove that it was more than just a lucky fluke for a franchise that's sliding slowly into irrelevancy. So naturally, they decide...
Also, I don't think Deadpool and Wolverine being successful was a lucky fluke. I think that's another disingenuous statement made by him. Most people agree the movie was going to do really well. It would have been more shocking if the movie underperformed than overperformed, because everybody expected it to be a smash hit. I don't know anybody that thought it was going to be bad, personally. A lot of people were like, oh, it might just be okay, or it's going to be really good. I don't know anybody that said it was going to be bad, other than a bunch of dumbasses on Twitter hiding behind fake pictures and stuff, which I don't count their opinion, because it doesn't matter.
Decided to follow it up with Agatha All Along. And if that name's not familiar to you, you might remember it more as Agatha House of Harkness, or Agatha Coven of Chaos, or Agatha Darkhold Diaries.
Right, they wanted to stay in the news cycle. That was the whole point of doing that. Looking back, that was the entire point, was like to remind people that the show is still out there. It's kind of a clever way to do it. I don't know. You could like it or dislike it. It worked, right? People were talking about it.
I hate so much about the things that you choose to be.
And yeah, the constant name changes were definitely an intentional move as part of a quirky marketing campaign, and totally not a panicking studio trying different ways to polish a turd.
See, that's you speculating. You are going to the extreme. You're like, oh, they were obviously upset and concerned and worried, instead of the more obvious and realistic answer, which was it was a marketing ploy, which you know it was, which is why you said that first, and then you said the outrageous thing second, because that's what you want your audience to do. You want them to remember the outrageous part of it and forget the fact that it was actually a marketing thing. God, your viewers are so dumb.
It's a show that's been in development for so long that I genuinely started to forget what it was even based on, and I suspect the people behind the trailer realized this too, which is why...
No, how could you forget? Just like a minute in and you said like 3 massively disingenuous things. I don't believe any of those.
But 50% of it is just a recap of WandaVision. Ah, remember WandaVision? Remember the first few episodes that hinted at a bold and inventive new way of Marvel storytelling on Disney Plus, only to devolve into the same generic CGI slop as everything else they've put out in the past 5 years?
So you don't want big spectacle movies from them? No. Okay, I thought that's what you guys wanted, was like the same stuff they'd been making the whole time. But now you're calling it slop. So now none of it was good, right? Because you're not being specific. You're being very vague.
Anyway, believe it or not, the show is almost upon us now, and having watched the trailer and a couple of the behind-the-scenes featurettes to familiarize myself with what it's trying to be, the big...
So this was before he had watched any of the episodes. So this whole video is basically him talking about something that he hadn't watched yet, which is the argument that I've had about a lot of these guys, is the amount of astroturfing that happens. You are making this speculatory video based on absolutely spite and the news cycle. Spite the news cycle. That's what you're doing it with it.
Biggest question that comes to my mind is, who's the show even made for? Don't worry.
I mean, people like me. People that really like Catherine Hahn, Patti LuPone. We enjoyed WandaVision. We typically like more than dislike things in the MCU. So we're going to check things out. It's Halloween. It's a show about witches. The marketing on it has been really solid. The placement of it's really solid. So fans of those things probably would tune in and watch the show. And they did, in fact, which we'll see here in a second. So this idea or this question of who was it made for is very disingenuous. What is anything made for, really? I mean, if we want to get super theoretical about it, who is anything made for? You never know. You never know. Sometimes you have to take a chance. And this seems like a risk for them. They were willing to go out on a limb. It's also a limited series, so there was no pressure for a season 2. Yeah, it seems to me like they knew exactly what they were doing.
Don't worry though, we'll come back to that question in a minute. The general premise, as far as I understand it, is that Agatha was stripped of her powers and imprisoned by Wanda at the end of WandaVision, but with Wanda dead, for now at least, Agatha's been released from her spell. The problem is that she still doesn't have her witch powers back, and the only way to retrieve them is to follow the witch's road, where she'll be rewarded by whatever she wants at the end, provided she can survive the trials, of course. So before you can say contrived plot ideas, she's assembled a diverse squad.
Contrived plot ideas? So an unrealistic setup for the show? It's a show about magic and witches in a fictional world. It's supposed to be silly and campy. You're mad that it's an unrealistic storyline? An inorganic storyline, something that they had to write to if you're going to apply contrive to something, then it has to be something that's outside of the tone or the scope of what it is. This fits in line with what the show is. And once you watch the show, you will see that the storyline does not come off that way. It feels very natural, organic. Matter of fact, it's some of the best writing we've had in Marvel TV in a really long time. So the idea that it's contrived, that seems like a reach. Seems like you're reaching, you're stretching for that one.
Of witches to embark on her journey with her. Nice to see a token male witch thrown in there too. I'm sure he's going to be a real bastion of masculinity.
So your issue is that he's gay. That's an anti-gay dog whistle, right? That you're coming at him because he's not quote unquote masculine. So it's no longer the bar. Like I said before, the bar is no longer fidelity. Remember when there was all these complaints from these guys about how things should just be true and traditional and what it was at the core. Well, now you have a character like Wiccan, who is a gay character in the comic books that comes onto the show as a gay character. Now they're making fun of them for the fidelity of bringing a gay character into live action as a gay character, the way that he's presented. Also, the idea that you're calling a male character a token, a man a token, on a show when literally all you guys do is complain about the lack of men. There's a man on the show and now you don't want the guy on the show? Oh, you don't want the gay guy on the show. That's what it is. He's a gay guy. He's not a muscle Chad, like a mega Chad type character. So because he's not, so it doesn't count. So it's not just about it being a guy. It has to be a very specific kind of guy. Very specific. I forgot about that.
Can I interest you in a pre-road appetizer?
Never mind. While we're on that subject, though, let's see if we can find any of the other modern MCU trademarks, shall we? Cringeworthy attempts at humor?
You're bound.
So you say trademark. So you're counting Wiccan as a trademark. What other gay character, openly gay man, has been presented in any Marvel property prior to this, other than Eternals? Since you're saying it's like something they do all the time. Which one? What movies? This is the same thing I said when I got on a conversation with EVS about this. You're creating these things that aren't happening. They're not happening. Wiccan is only the second gay male character that has been in the MCU openly as a character, like a proper character. So you're setting up a scenario that doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. And you're saying it so quickly that your viewers are just going to absorb that and assume that you're being honest about that when you're not.
You're bound.
And you need a chemical peel.
Check. Generic tough female character that everyone's supposed to be scared of? Check. Implied gay relationship that can be easily edited out for international releases?
Do I hate her or do I want her phone number?
Check.
This is not.
No, actually not check. That storyline is an integral part of the series, which is something they finally got right. They decided to actually add in some meaningful stuff into the story. And as far as I know, they haven't edited any of this out for any international audiences. I could be wrong, but up until this point, they haven't done that because they would have to edit out so much of the show. So I don't think that's going to be a factor. But even if it was, you just made fun of a gay character. So now you want them to be more meaningful with the gay characters? You want them to be more present? You want them to have a better storyline? Or do you not? Which one of those things are you arguing for? Because I can never tell. One moment you're mad at Disney for including a gay character. The next moment you're mad at Disney for including a gay character that can be edited out easily. So which one of those things do you want?
Never gonna work.
Never a truer word was spoken, lass. The one thing I can say in the show's favour is that they seem to be prioritising practical effects over CGI, at least according to the behind-the-scenes featurettes, which is something, I guess. In a franchise where apparently it's too much effort.
Oh, it's something. You can't give them too much praise. Like it's one of those backhanded compliments, right? So you are happy they're using practical effects, which, by the way, again, one of the least expensive Marvel shows to date. Okay, something that you guys have been crying about for I don't know, years now, that everything is so massively blown out of budget. You can't even give them a proper concession. So you're like, it's sort of like, oh, I guess that's good. I guess that's okay. No, that should be something that's really exciting for you. It's something that you've asked for. But this is why I said these guys will never be happy with any of this, because they're never going to give Marvel a fair shake. They have no intention to do that. So no matter what Marvel does, which is why they should never, ever placate to these guys, they should never pander to these guys in any capacity. No matter what they do, it's never going to be enough. It's never going to be enough until these guys have total control over every single aspect of movie and TV show media that comes out from Disney and Marvel. Star Wars, Star Trek, all of it.
In a franchise where apparently it's too much effort to even film on a suburban street for real, it's nice to see production designers working with prosthetics, animatronics, and actual physical sets for a change. I mean, I definitely wouldn't expect them to continue this trend, but it did make me think that someone in charge of it actually cares about the end products. That's nice and all, but I suspect all that good work is going to be undone by the writing, which, if the trailer and the features is anything to go by, is going to make Amy Schumer seem like Dave Chappelle. I mean, I know that humor's...
It's so funny at how wrong he was. It is so fucking funny at how wrong he was about this. Absolutely 100% incorrect about all of this. All the speculation just to be wrong, bro.
Objective, but Jesus Christ, there's only so far you can push that premise before it collapses under the weight of terrible gags, awful delivery, and a tone so predictable that it feels like it came off an assembly line. It's...
This is the part that gets me. You guys keep pining for Marvel to go back to the formula that they had originally, like phase 1, phase 2-ish era of Marvel. You want them to go back to that formula. You've admitted that they've tried other things in this video when you talked about WandaVision. Agatha, all along, you're saying, who is this even made for? But then you're chastising it for being the same as everything else. So if it's the same as everything else, then it would be made for everyone else. It would be made for that group. It can't be vastly different and so strange that it's not made for anybody, but then at the same time be cookie cutter and the same as everything else, made for the mass market. It can't be both of those things. This is why I can't take you seriously. And anybody that listens to you shouldn't take you seriously. Those two are conflicting ideas. They don't make any sense. They don't exist on the same plate. They just don't.
So predictable that it feels like it came off an assembly line.
So it's predictable in the same, but it's also so different that it wasn't made for anybody.
Lead actresses, and how surprising it is that she can also do drama.
So many people think of Catherine as being a comedic actor, but it's her dramatic ability to go all the way there. Lesbian witches!
Meanwhile, all I could think about was this scene from Planet Terror.
They all say I'm hysterical.
But you're not.
All of this gusto, all of this hubris, only to be so fucking wrong. So fucking wrong. It's crazy to me. Let's just take a break from this for a second and look at the facts. All right, so this is something that really never happens. You don't typically see a massive increase in viewer interest on a show as it goes along. Typically, there's a drop off and then it sort of ramps back up or whatever. But the thing about it is, this show has continued to do extremely well, or did continue to do extremely well through the life of the show. Agatha All Along episode 7 bewitches 4.2 million views just after a day of streaming. So Disney says that episode 7, which was directed by showrunner Jack Schaefer, drove 4.2 million views globally just after one day of streaming, up 35% from the premiere episode's performance. Disney, like Netflix, defines views as total stream divided by runtime. Agatha All Along ends on a high note as final episodes spellbind strong audience. It says, it talks about the episode 8, 4.6 views. Episode 9 saw a 20% increase from premiere with 3.9 million views. But according to Disney, like Netflix, okay, so it's likely the finale's viewership decreases due part to the fact that 2 episodes dropped on Disney Plus at once. So episodes 8 and 9 dropped on the same day. Instead of the usual one, episode 8 was up from the prior episode, which got 4.2 million views in one day. So overall, there's an indication that interest remains strong, and episode 9 could recover in those views in coming days. Not to mention, Agatha All Along cast brews up Billboard chart hit with the Ballad of the Witch's Road. The chant by Catherine Hahn, Sashir Zamata, Alian, Patti LuPone, and Deborah Jo Rupp debuts on digital song sales. Here it did it debuted at number 22. Number 22. So by all accounts, and it's not just this, it's just general audience reception to the show. We're talking about critics and viewers. General reception to the show has been extremely positive. It's one of the most talked about shows right now on social media. There's people that have tried to astroturf it, tried to give it bad reviews after the fact. It's just, that's not the reality of the show. Clearly the numbers say otherwise. Clearly the charting of the song says otherwise. The show is exactly what it was advertised to be. The viewership was the exact demographic they were trying to hit. It's very different from anything Marvel's done. Vastly underestimated by most people. So let's jump back over to Drinker and see what else he has to say now that we know this.
This is what happens when you tell people lies their entire careers. Lies like, you're really funny, or you're a great singer, or this.
Are you seriously questioning Catherine Hahn and Patti LuPone? You are not a serious person. There's no fucking way you're a serious person. Do you realize their careers? Especially Patti LuPone. Do you realize her career? I guess you don't, because you're one of those idiots that doesn't think outside of your bubble. You don't even research shit for 5 seconds. You just say dumb stuff. You say dumb stuff to your millions of subscribers. It's so irresponsible. And it just shows how fucking stupid you are.
This show is totally going to be a hit. Trust me.
It was. It
The person I feel
was.
most sorry for, though, is Aubrey Plaza, one of the only actresses in this show who's actually funny in real life, and probably deserves a lot more success than she's gotten in her career. If Jenna Ortega is the MCU, then Plaza is the Fox X-Men movies. Someone who got there first, had their share of wins and losses, but never quite reached the same heights, and ultimately blew their best chance of success. But I think the biggest problem this show has to overcome is that, well, nobody really wanted this fucking thing in the first place.
Really? That's interesting. So this is, again, what happens when your entire existence is inside of this echo chamber bubble, something that they really accuse my community of being. But typically they're the ones that live that way. There were a lot of people excited about Agatha All Along. People that I was talking to, people I associate with, were very excited for this. The gay folks were waiting. We were carrying this show on our back. Honestly, we really wanted the show to do well. Ballad of the Witch's Road ended up being massively successful. Everybody expected some great music to come out of the show. They didn't expect that. That ended up being absolutely a slam dunk. So a lot of people wanted the show. A lot of people wanted it.
It was commissioned at a very different time, a time when Marvel was still riding high, and they probably thought that every new Disney Plus show was going to spawn a whole network of spin-offs that people would absolutely gobble up.
That wasn't the intention. It was a limited series. They went into it with the idea. They had one idea for this character, one idea for the story. They presented it. Marvel liked it, and they went in for that way. You know that. You know, again, disingenuous. Fuck.
And well, the reality in 2024 is very different. Tell me, are you excited to watch a show that's basically a spin-off of a spin-off, centered around a character that was so completely forgettable that it's...
Everything in Marvel is a spin-off of a spin-off. Let's be clear here. Everything. It's like Critical Drinker. You don't read fucking comic books. You don't read comic books. You don't know how comic book shit works. Everything is connected in some way. It all is. Characters can drop in here, drop in there. The entire existence of the vast majority of characters in Marvel came from spin-offs of the Fantastic Four. Like, bro, you don't even know comic books. You're complaining that they're not catering to the actual fans. You don't even read fucking comic books. Fuck.
It's almost impossible to even form an opinion about her now. I asked at the start of this video who I thought this show was made for, and taking into account the aging and mostly female cast, the campy tone, the song and dance numbers, the constant wardrobe changes, and the painfully dated attempts at humour, it seems to be a show targeted at middle-aged wine mums who also have a passing interest in superhero movies. And I'm not going to lie, that is a pretty small demographic you're appealing to there. I think Marvel...
Middle-aged wine moms are a small demographic? You may want to look up the U.S. Census to look at the demographic for women to find out what you're talking about. That's a little short-sighted, a little bit sexist. Luckily, we don't have much longer to suffer through this.
Themselves suspect this show is dead in the water and is likely to land with all the impact of a left hook from Stephen Hawking, which is why there's been almost no advertising push for it. By all accounts, their senior leadership is very...
Man, it sounds to me like the success of this show we should overpraise them, because according to Critical Drinker, they weren't doing any legwork. He's making it sound like they just were dumping it off onto Disney Plus, no advertisement, no nothing, bad promotional stuff. Like, we should give them all the roses for this show. We should give them all the roses for it, because against all of that, the show still ended up being a massive success. Financially for Disney, again, a lower budget. They used more practical effects instead of CGI. They had some fantastic people on the show creating music for it. The acting was through the roof. The writing was through the roof. I mean, maybe they should be given raises. Maybe they should be given a lot more credit for what they did, based on what Critical Drinker is saying.
Be aware of their decline in popularity these days, and more importantly, the reasons why it's happening, and they're working hard to alter course. The problem is that massive franchises like the MCU are about as maneuverable as your average super tanker, and there's still a whole lot of shit in the pipeline that's too far.
So is it all the same, or is it not all the same? You're saying it's maneuverable as a tanker of shit or whatever it is you said? Like you can't move it around? Then how are they making different projects? How is that possible? How the fuck is that possible? I'm so exhausted with this guy. I'm so exhausted with this entire community. Y'all are just fucking stupid.
Along to salvage. For example, Ironheart's been in the can for years now, and they still haven't released it because they know it's going to suck. But just like the...
Oh, again, that aged poorly. Like, right after Agatha All Along ended, they started releasing the teasers for all the upcoming stuff, and there goes Ironheart. So I'm pretty sure that he's going to start astroturfing Ironheart, even though maybe he already has. I haven't looked at his channel. Maybe he already has. Maybe he's already started astroturfing it. He's talking shit about it here.
DCU, once James Gunn took over, there's not much choice except to expel it out into the world, get it over with, and hopefully move on to something better. Honestly, with 9 episodes to get through, I don't think I'll even bother watching Agatha All Along, and I suspect a lot of other people out there are going to feel the same way. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now. Man, some people...
So, I just want to point out at how absolutely wrong these guys have been about so many things from Marvel this year in particular. Let's talk about the big 3 things, the 3 big projects, which would have been X-Men 97, Deadpool and Wolverine, and Agatha All Along. Out of those 3, 2 of them were astroturfed to fucking hell, which was X-Men 97 and Agatha All Along. Both of them were extremely well received by the actual fans who love that kind of stuff. Extremely well received. Really no negatives. I mean, yeah, you can criticize some of the elements of it, like actual legitimate criticism, but overall, both of them successful. So they have that going for them. Deadpool and Wolverine, obviously massively successful for Marvel this year. So what's happening is these guys are breaking down, which is why they keep going back to this whole Tatiana Maslany type thing with Ryan Reynolds and Deadpool and Wolverine and She-Hulk. They keep going back to that fake news because there's nothing for them to criticize. This is what I said. So this is why I've constantly talked about they don't want Hollywood to change. They need Hollywood to keep making things that they can talk about. Because if there's nothing coming out, they're going to have to start making stuff up. And that's only going to go but so far. That story between She-Hulk, Deadpool, and Wolverine thing or whatever, yeah, it was hot for a moment. They probably made some money off of that, but we all know it was a bullshit story. We all know it was bullshit. So Marvel's had 3 out of 3 big things this year. And so they don't have anything to criticize. And they're going to have to wait a little bit longer to criticize anything else because we know the projects that are coming out next year aren't right around the corner. I mean, they're not going to talk about What If. Maybe they will. I don't know. I doubt it. What If doesn't really trend, and it's the final season of What If. So they can't say, oh, it was canceled because there's no planned season 4 of What If. So it's just funny to me to go back and watch this and just see how absolutely fucking wrong Critical Drinker was about this, how wrong he's been about so many things. And you guys keep eating it up. You keep eating it up. You keep acting as if these guys are speaking prophecies, that they're the visionaries of the chud space, and they're just not. They're just not. They're not even watching the stuff they're talking about. You guys are buying into people that aren't even engaging in the content. They're supposed to do it so you don't have to. And now the bar is so low, they don't even have to do it.